Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan selamat datang di INDRA SFN channel. Halo guys, hari ini kita bertemu lagi di video ini dan aku sangat senang sekali karena kita dapat berjumpa lagi dan aku tentunya sangat berharap semoga kita semua dalam keadaan baik-baik saja, dalam keadaan sehat selalu, bukan hanya kita bahkan seluruh keluarga kita dan semua orang yang kita sayangi, juga termasuk orang yang ada di sekitar kita. Semoga semuanya dalam keadaan sehat-sehat selalu dan dimudahkan rezekinya kapanpun dan dimanapun. Amin. Guys, hari ini ada pembahasan yang sangat menarik lagi guys. Sangat-sangat menarik. Karena dia adalah Mat Saleh dan Mina Saleh yang mengaku sangat berpengalaman dan telah berkeliling ke mana-mana negara guys. Dia telah masuk ke Filipina, Singapura, dan juga Thailand dan banyak lagi negara yang telah ia masuki. Namun hanya satu saja guys, hanya negara Malaysia saja yang membuat dia sangat terkesan dan lebih daripada 2 minggu dia tinggal di sana guys ya. Yang mana dia mengaku di banyak-banyak negara itu dia tidak terlalu betah bila berada di negara itu guys. Namun kalau di Malaysia ini dia cakap lain guys, beda. Dia merasakan ada kenyamanan tersendiri bila ada di Malaysia. Bahkan dia membawa serta seluruh keluarganya untuk lebih lama tinggal di Malaysia guys. Nah, di sini dia ungkapkan alasan apa saja yang merasa ia membuat ia nyaman di negara Malaysia, yang membuat ia suka sekali dengan Malaysia. Bahkan ia tak berniat untuk balik lagi ke negaranya guys ya, gara-gara Malaysia, karena Malaysia yang membuat dia betah di sana. Nah, berikut ia akan menyatakan hal itu guys. Dia akan membuat pengakuan kenapa dia sayang dengan negara Malaysia. Nah, ini videonya guys ya. Langsung saja kita mereaksinya.
It's really sacrificing any quality of life living in Malaysia for a significantly improved cost of living. And that's one of the reasons I think it's probably where everyone should travel. Malaysia is one of the best countries in the world for that. We make it no secret, we think Malaysia is one of the best countries on the planet. You know, I seriously considering moving here. And yeah, we just want to talk about some of the things that we love about Malaysia. First thing we absolutely love about Malaysia is that it's not perfect. And I'm comparing this to Singapore, right? So you've got Singapore over here and you've got Malaysia up here. And we spent a bit of time in Singapore. And the thing with Singapore especially is, yes, it's a very nice country, but it's so sanitary. It's so like...
It's the same as Australia.
Yeah.
Sorry, but you're like taking Australia to Asia and it's the same. We like the same, but we don't like the same, right?
And it's too sanitary. You really feel like you can't do a lot of things in Singapore because it's quite aggressive with the policing there and things like that. Malaysia's this like nice mix in the middle of it not being perfect. You can go on a few more adventures and be a little bit more adventurous and do things that you maybe not necessarily feel comfortable doing in Singapore. Like for instance, we just went on an ATV tour around Penang, Balik Palau. Sorry, my Malaysian pronunciation's still working on it. But we just went on this tour, ATV tour, and we got the kids and we put them on the front. Now, in Singapore or even in Australia, you wouldn't be allowed to do that, obviously.
And wouldn't be allowed to drive at all.
We took a calculated risk, the tour operators took a calculated risk, and we did it. And the boys had an absolutely amazing adventure. Remember Malaysia forever for that experience. We have a lot of those experiences in Malaysia, you know, probably more so than any other country we travel. And I think imperfection creates perfection in a way. So like the fact that it's a little bit imperfect, you know, look at this, there's mangoes literally growing on trees out the front here. And you know, it's like little things like this that concreted in our memory is like, this is a really, I'm going to remember these experiences we've had in this country. So Malaysia is really good because it's not too imperfect that it's like not livable for a foreigner or a tourist, but then it's not too perfect where you feel like you're getting on a little bit of the wild side and doing things that you would traditionally do in your home city. So Malaysia is a big tick in that aspect, really big tick. We got a kitty over here that's making a lot of noise, wants to be in the video. So the next thing we wanted to talk about and why we absolutely love Malaysia, I know people talk about this a lot, and we've actually spoken about this a lot.
But in multiple videos.
Malaysians and the ethnic cultures that are women within Malaysia, beautiful people. Really are. And I'm not saying that, you know, for any other reason except the fact that like we've been around a lot, and I would say the Malaysians are some of the friendliest and nicest people we've met, and respectful. Respectful's a big one as well. You know, you go to a tourist area and you don't have people in your face trying to sell you things. Whereas you go to some other Southeast Asian countries and you understand why they do it. It's, you know, it's part...
They've got to make a living.
They've got to make a living. But because of the majority Muslim population and the big cultural diversity here in Malaysia, there's a lot more respect. And I love that. I love that about Malaysia.
Just yesterday, we had to borrow one of the staff members at Escape to do our ride. Our ride needed 4 people. I was told he was too heavy, so I needed someone else on the ride with the kids. We literally borrowed a staff member and she was so happy and excited to do it with us that she was just there with a smile on her face that she could help us.
Speaking of smiles, there's smiles everywhere here. You know, we've run into lots of people now and they're all just smiling and happy. And obviously, like every country in the world, there's problems, but for the most part, everyone's just happy to go with the flow. It's a relatively peaceful country too. Malaysians and Chinese and Indian and all the Malaysian people that live in Malaysia, you're absolutely beautiful people. And I would recommend coming to this country for the people, if that's a thing. But yeah, the people here are amazing and we've only had a positive experience. Maybe not so much the police, but everyone else. So the next reason we absolutely love Malaysia is the food. And I think that goes without saying. I think
definitely goes without saying.
And I think in about...
And we mentioned it so many times.
Yeah, I think in about 4 videos we mentioned the food. Like I've said, I love my food. Food here is absolutely unreal.
Yeah.
It's like nowhere else. You know, there's good food in a lot of countries. You know, Philippines has really good food, Vietnam. But because of the cultural mix in this country, food is just different. You can get like fusion meals between like Chinese Indian fusion and Malaysian Indian fusion.
One example, we drove past a restaurant yesterday and we're trying to describe it to our friends that we're talking to on the bus, and we read the sign and he literally did like 5 cuisines at one restaurant, like, and they're like, how does he do Indian yet local yet Western yet something else? And they just do, and they do it all well.
And the people that make this food take pride in the fact that they're in a country that is known for its food. So like there's a lot of heart and effort put into food. I've noticed this, and I don't know if you noticed this, but like even if you get like Western takeaway like Burger King or A&W and stuff, just the fact that they put the burgers together properly. And like
They always look nice.
yeah, they put effort into what they do.
I feel like Australia, you just go like this.
We've had some
and
shocking food in Australia. As much as Australia's food quality is impeccable, we have some of the best quality food in the world. The people that are serving it a lot of time, a lot to be desired because there's no incentive to do it properly. Whereas here, you know, when you go...
Nah guys, terbukti bahwa kuliner ya, ini kita bahas hanya dari kuliner. Ini salah satu faktor yang mampu menarik minat wisatawan asing untuk masuk ke negara Malaysia. Ini baru kita bahas tentang kulinernya. Belum kita bahas tentang hal-hal yang lainnya guys ya, seperti budaya dan juga wisata, dan masih banyak lagi yang dapat menarik minat para pelancong untuk masuk ke negara itu. Oke, kita lanjutkan.
The whole country's reputation relying on your meal. That's how I feel like it's treated sometimes. And it's, you know, that makes the food really good here. And the other thing too is that because there's such a big diverse mix of people here and cultures, if I want to eat really spicy, I can. And in the same place, if the kids and Pauline don't want to eat something that's spicy, they can get it in the same place. There's always a mix, and there's always a good mix of different types of food as well, which is awesome. So the next reason we really love Malaysia is that there's lots to do as a family. It's really a family destination, in my opinion. You've got countries all over Asia that have plenty of cool things to do, but Malaysia has a really, really good mix of super modern, super fun, high energy stuff like theme parks.
Crazy water slides, the biggest this, the biggest that, like, yeah.
And if you just love nature, you got like places like Malacca,
Cameron
Highlands in
and middle
Ipoh.
of Penang, like the rainforest is here.
All flavors of travel. If you just want to do adventurous stuff, there's plenty of that. Yeah.
Hiking everywhere you possibly think of, you could go on a hike.
Yep. And if you want to just lay back and relax, there's plenty of resorts and things like that, and just like Genting Highlands and things like that for like the touristy stuff.
Fun stuff.
So like I feel like that's a really good thing, is that like this is one of the best family destinations in the world, in my opinion, is Malaysia. So another reason we really like Malaysia, and it's probably something you don't think about when you're traveling, is air quality. We have kids, and you know, we don't want our kids sucking in really bad air because it's not good for them, right? It's not good for us. Malaysia's air quality is some of the best in the world. As far as like Southeast Asia goes, it's one of the best countries for air quality, and you really notice it. Like if you go to Manila, for instance, Metro Manila, you can barely breathe. And there's nothing against Manila, it's just there's so many people. the air quality here is much like Australia. Fantastic air and nature in Australia, and the air quality here is somewhat similar. And that's a really big plus if you're traveling or you're going to live somewhere for an extended period of time, because you can get really sick from bad air. You know, when you got kids, you want to make sure that they're breathing
You have to
really
think
good
about
air.
everyone when you have kids. You have to think about us, and you have to think about them.
Yeah, Malaysia's got some of the best air quality in Southeast Asia, and that's a big tick in our books. So this one is super important to us, and it's another reason we absolutely love Malaysia, and that's that the majority of people speak English.
Enough to have a conversation.
Yes, yeah, you know, look, they're not native English speakers, but you can get by in Malaysia really easily by knowing just a certain amount of, you know, they knowing basic terms and them knowing basic English. And that's a big plus, especially for someone that comes from a native speaking country. You can go to countries like Vietnam and barely anyone speaks English, and it makes it incredibly difficult to get around because you know the basics, but when you're asking questions about a place, that's where the conversation stops. Whereas we can have conversations with people and kind of get the gist of what needs to happen, which is a massive plus. And Malaysia has the second highest English proficiency in Southeast Asia, and you can really see it.
Yeah,
you can tell.
So anywhere from the grab driver to the shop attendant to even the hawkers stalls, where you wouldn't think they have a whole lot of English, but they actually have more than what you expect.
Yeah. I will say this though, very few people understand Australian English and understand how thick my accent is.
Jimmy.
Australian accent. I get a lot of people that just give me blank stares. But that you just live with that. I don't think it's a problem with Malaysia. I just have to improve my English speaking because it's very fast and it's slur words. So
I
funny.
think you've got a very thick accent
I do,
as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, if we need to really say something, I get Pauline to say it. So there's a lot of you that may be watching this video that are just listening to Pauline and just ignoring me, which is fine. That's why we both talk on these videos. All right, so this is something that not a lot of people talk about, but it's really important to us, is that Malaysia makes a fantastic home base for the rest of Southeast Asia. You hear a lot about Singapore as a home base, but cost of living is really bad in Singapore, and it's really bad to find accommodation. Kuala Lumpur is a really fantastic base to see the rest of Southeast Asia because flights are so cheap, and living and being here is cheap. So you can get on a flight to Manila and it might cost you $100 Australian or 300 ringgits.
Well, just an example, we're flying from Penang back to Singapore, and I think the total for 4 of us was under 100 Australian.
So under 300 ringgit to fly from Penang to Singapore. Now, for context, for those people that are watching from Malaysia, that same flight distance in Australia is going to cost you 1,200 ringgit a person. So it's amazingly cheap to use KL as your home base to see it. And then you come back here, spend a month or two in Malaysia, get your bearings, get your rest back, revive, and then go and see Vietnam or go see Cambodia. Go and see these other countries. And that makes a massive difference in my opinion. So we touched on this when we were talking about our home base, but one of the massive perks and one of the things we absolutely love about Malaysia is that the cost of living is so good. Obviously, coming from Australia, just about anywhere is going to have a better cost of living than Australia, but really, we've spoken to a lot of expats and us as well from personal experience, and the cost of living here is so good.
So much cheaper than Australia. So we're probably spending for a month about half of what we are spending in Australia.
And we're living comfortably, you know, we're living and we're seeing sights and doing it. If we were just staying here and just living our life, we could probably be spending a third of what we spend in Australia. The thing with Malaysia specifically over just about the rest of Southeast Asia is there's no reduction in quality of life for that cost of living in decrease. In some countries in Southeast Asia, yes, it's a lot cheaper to live, but then you also have to sacrifice a lot. In Malaysia, there's good internet, there's good health, there's good roads, the cars are readily available. English speaking, you're not really sacrificing any quality of life living in Malaysia for a significantly improved cost of living. And that's one of the reasons I think it's probably where everyone should travel, not just people from Australia, but I think as far as a country to come to visit and spend an extended period of time, Malaysia is one of the best countries in the world for that, just for that reason alone. But then you got all these other perks that we've just spoken about, which make a massive difference too. So we've saved the best for last. Now, to be fair, everything on this list has been an amazing and part of the reason we absolutely love Malaysia. But this is one of the things I love the most about Malaysia. And Malaysians, you probably take this for granted, honestly, but it's a massive thing for Australians because it's so hard to get this, and that is delivery of things.
From postage to food to groceries, you can get everything at your door
And
within an hour.
you don't realize how expensive this stuff is in other countries until you come to a country like Malaysia and you can get groceries delivered for less than $1.
Oh, we did a grocery shop and it was over 100 ringgits, like $30 to $40 Australian, and they delivered it for like 65 cents.
It's unbelievable how efficient it is to have stuff delivered to you and how much more we're getting done. And like you said, there's a lot of Malaysians that are watching this. It's a great country, by the way. Love your place. Go to Australia. That same food delivery will cost you
About $15.
and so what, 45 ringgit.
And take you like 24 hours to get.
Yep. It's such a subtle thing, but it makes a massive difference to quality of life. And part of the reason we love Malaysia, honestly, like, you know, I had camera gear delivered to me. So it was 3,000 ringgit worth of camera gear. And it got to me within 45 minutes. I couldn't get to it. And now they just used Lala move, whacked it in the back of a motorcycle. I had it in 45 minutes. Where else in the world does that happen? I don't know.
Australia, they cost you like $15 and take you like a week.
Dan itu tadi video yang baru saja kita reaksi tentang pengalaman orang asing, orang Australia yang berkunjung ke negara Malaysia. Nah, dia di sini mengungkapkan tentang pengalaman-pengalaman yang ia alami. Dia sangat suka dengan negara itu, dia sangat cinta. Pengakuannya dari sini sudah sangat jelas, guys ya. Apa yang ia katakan di sini tentang negara Malaysia yang membuat mereka tak berpikir panjang bila untuk mengunjungi negara itu, guys. Nah, di sini ia ungkapkan tentang bagaimana ia menyukai negara Malaysia. Nah, ini adalah faktornya, guys ya. Faktor dia sangat menyukai negara itu. Dia mengatakan bahwa negara Malaysia adalah negara yang tidak sempurna. Jika dibandingkan dengan Singapura dan Australia, Malaysia tidak sempurna. Tapi di Malaysia kami bisa melakukan hal yang tidak bisa dilakukan di Singapura dan Australia. Nah, dia bisa melakukan hal yang tidak bisa dia lakukan di negaranya dan juga di negara Singapura, guys ya. Nah, inilah keistimewaan negara Malaysia, guys ya. Tentang kelebihan negara orang lain, ya tentang kelebihan negara Malaysia juga. Terkadang apa yang ada di Malaysia itu tidak ada di negara lain. Terkadang apa yang menjadi kelebihan negara Malaysia itu tidak ada di negara lain, ya guys ya. Ini fakta yang diungkap oleh dua orang turis asing ini, guys. Nah, selanjutnya dia cakap bahwa orang Malaysia paling baik dan peramah serta rasa hormat yang tinggi kepada orang lain. Nah, paling ramah, paling sopan, paling hormat, paling santun, paling menghargai orang lain. Ini adalah ciri-ciri orang Melayu dan juga kebanyakan orang Malaysia, guys ya. Tentunya sangat welcome kepada semua orang. Bila turis masuk itu, mereka sangat sopan, guys. Sehingga turis itu tidak menyesal bila masuk ke negara Malaysia. Nah, ketiga dia sebut adalah makanan, ya guys ya. Makanan, karena perpaduan budaya makanan di Malaysia itu berbeda dari negara lain. Nah, ada makanan etnis Cina, ada makanan etnis India, etnis Melayu, dan ragam makanan dunia yang hadir di Malaysia. Nah, itu yang membuat wisatawan yang berburu kuliner tentunya ini menjadikan negara Malaysia sebagai prioritas untuk mereka singgahi, guys. Nah, dia juga katakan, guys, bahwa biaya hidup di Malaysia jauh lebih murah daripada biaya hidup di kampung halamannya Australia, guys. Maka dari itu, cobalah diperhatikan, guys ya. Ada banyak sekali orang-orang Australia yang berwisata ke negara Malaysia, guys. Karena faktor ini juga, guys, selain kuliner, juga biaya hidup yang sangat murah di Malaysia itu membuat semua orang itu rasa gimana ya, udah nggak sabaran ya bila saat ingin berkunjung ke negara itu. Bahkan semua orang keluarganya bisa saja dibawa, guys ya, karena ingin melihat keindahan alam, keindahan kota, dan keindahan negara itu dengan biaya yang tidak mahal.